Our search for intriguing homes starts on the north side. There's a place where Evanston Street ends and becomes a driveway lined with wildflowers. Hidden way back in the woods is a red brick building with 2 towering smokestacks. It's tough to spot through the trees. 2 artists, Ron and Patty Fleming, live here.
Good morning. Welcome to Hearthstone. Come on in.
They've named this place Hearthstone because it's the old City of Tulsa incinerator. The Flemings have created a garden paradise in what was a forsaken place. The city used to burn everything from household garbage to hospital waste here. The incinerator was abandoned in the 40s and sat empty until the Flemings stumbled upon it.
Well, this is where the trucks would drive through and drop the trash in the openings that were in the floor, and then it would be downstairs where the burning chamber was. So they would just drive through. There was openings in each end of the building, and they just drive in, unload their cargo, and drive on out and go get another load.
The Flemings bought the incinerator from the city for $5,000. The price covered the building. Tons of ashes were free.
So you can see we were literally mining it. I mean, it was a lot of work. And there were a lot of interior walls. You can see that fire brick ceiling hanging down.
Wow, it really was a mess in there. But after a year of cleaning ashes, the Flemings started on renovations. They created this giant indoor garden and hot tub.
I envisioned a lot more exotic plants in here, and over the years I've learned to put something that's pretty tolerable and doesn't take an awful lot of pampering, so that's helped a lot too. Especially wonderful in the wintertime. You go outside and everything's dry and dead, and you turn around and you look in here and it's green and smells good.
The old incinerator seems to be the perfect home for this creative couple. The place has 2 giant smokestacks, and inside one, Ron custom built a spiral staircase.
This area down in here is where the fire chamber was. You kind of wonder some of the stories that might have been. We've had people say, well, did you find any bones, or did you find any diamond rings, or anything that people might have thrown away? And believe me, we sifted through a lot of it at first, and the longer we dug, the less we did that, but we never found much except maybe a tin can every now and then, so nothing of any value.
Where fires once burned the city's trash, Ron has a studio. He's renowned for his work with turned wood vessels. One of his bowls was selected by the Smithsonian for display at the White House. He gets help from Patty, who finishes the bowls in her upstairs studio. When the Flemings pull away from their art, they usually retreat to the loft. It's their place to relax.
The loft out here is kind of like being up in the trees in a tree house. And that's kind of the mood that we were trying to set with it. So it's really a nice place to kind of relax and get rid of the day's work that you've been through. And this is our bedroom. It's kind of a loft area, and this bed and this dresser was in the old Skelly mansion, and they had an estate sale, and we had some friends that were doing the estate sale, and they called us one morning and said, we've got what you all have been looking for that house you're building out there. So we've done one thing to it. We altered it. It is a waterbed now, and Skelly would probably turn over in his grave, but that's all right.
So here, with their antique bed and their studios and indoor garden, the Flemings have what they consider a perfect home in this most unlikely place.
I will die here. I won't be buried in my, well, I won't be buried. My ashes will be scattered in my garden down the road.
Yeah,
I will be here forever.
Artists seem to like living in unusual places. A few miles from the incinerator, up on Reservoir Hill, there's an eclectic mix of stucco and stone houses. The Kallenbergers, Craig and Chris, both make a living in art. They live in a historical home that was once owned by portrait painter Joseph Siegel. He worked in a studio attached to the house, and he had some bizarre tastes.
This was the original garage of the house when it was built, and Joseph Siegel converted this into his painting studio. And all the ornamentation you see here is, from what I understand, salvage that he put together from buildings downtown, particularly the Coliseum that a lot of people remember.
Ah, the Coliseum. It was downtown at 6th and Elgin, and its ice rink was used for public skating and hockey games. Boy, did people have fun there. But it burned down in 1952, and that's when Seagull salvaged terracotta for his studio. So the Coliseum, or at least parts of it, are at the Kallenbergers.
There are little windows up here that came from a bank that say like cashier, and these windows are big bank doors.
They're bronze bank doors.
Bronze bank doors, right. And these weird little conquistadors that are in the alcoves, I don't have a clue where they may have come from.
This photo of Reservoir Hill was taken when Seagull lived here. To protect his privacy, he surrounded the land with evergreens. Now the 2.5 acres is like a park.
He would plant hundreds, literally hundreds, of little arborvitaes around the property that now the remaining ones are absolutely huge.
Needless to say, the artist who lived here loved his privacy and is still pretty much a mystery. But he left behind some of his works, and we asked Craig to show us.
What we have here are two examples of Mr. Seagull's work, and he was known to be a society portrait painter of the time, mid-40s and early 50s. And in the basement we found a picture apparently of Maud Lorton, and we're still trying to find out who this is. Near as we can tell, this was cut in half after it was done. Someone, like I say, someone was not happy with this painting.
Besides inheriting the portraits, the Kallenbergers also found large decorative urns around the property, and they've brought them inside.
This woman that you see up on the pedestal, very grand lady, carved with marble, probably French or Italian sort of thing. We found out buried in bushes, decapitated, sadly. And so Craig did surgery on her and put her back together, and we put her on this pedestal. She's rather hideous, but because we rescued her from the backyard, she has a place of honor in the living room now. In this house, a lot of what was added, the ornament and the weird outside decoration, is not what I would have done, but because it's part of the history and the interest of the house, I feel obliged to maintain it that way and respect it.
Talk about strange houses, and one guy's name usually pops up. Frank Lloyd Wright is America's best-known architect, known for his unconventional designs. One of his extraordinary works is right in the middle of Tulsa, at 37th and Birmingham. This concrete block, glass column house was built for the owner of the Tulsa Tribune, Richard Lloyd Jones. He was a cousin of the famous architect. Jones is deceased, and the family hasn't lived in the Wright house for a long time, but daughter Florence Barnett has a lot of pictures and memories.
And then this is the only one of the drawings, and it's a very pale one, but it's the only one that I have left. There were a number of them that Mother had saved.
Most of Frank Lloyd Wright's buildings have names. This one's called West Hope. It looks contemporary, but it's actually one of the oldest in the neighborhood. It was completed in 1930.
At that time, the Depression was on, and not many people were building houses, and certainly not Frank Lloyd Wright houses. And so Frank was really very hard up. And so Dad thought, well, we could build a house, and that would give him a showcase to get back into his work.
When the house was under construction, Wright came to Tulsa to supervise. That's the way he worked. But there were some occasional conflicts between Wright, who wanted to build this fantastic house, and the Jones, who were paying for it.
And Frank once said to my brother, I didn't build this house for your parents. Champagne corks should be flying over the roof and all full of young people.
Now, I believe a home is much more a home for being a work of art. And I think until it is a work of art, it lacks the essential characteristics of a home.
Well, you've probably noticed this piece of art has a flat roof. That was a problem.
Frank did not know how to do a flat roof, and it leaked like a sieve for a long, long time. And so Mother is credited with saying, well, that's what you get for leaving a work of art out in the rain.
Well, all good art usually attracts a crowd. And when West Hope was brand new, the curious came from all over just to stare.
One Sunday morning, Dad went out to pick up the paper, and here was this man on horseback. And he'd ridden his horse up to the front door, and he said to Dad, "What is this?" And Dad was so disgusted, he said, "Oh, it's a pickle factory." And the man said, "Do they have to build them like this?" No, that's a true story.
The design is typical Frank Lloyd Wright. Lots of windows and open space, rooms that flow from one to the other. A great place for parties, and Florence's wedding.
My father, he just said, "Well, you're being married at the house, of course." Mother and I said, "Yes, of course." So.
Well, the marriage and the house are holding together well. Other places look like they could have been designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, but they weren't. On 11th Place, west of Peoria, is a work by one of Oklahoma's most significant architects, Bruce Goff. In 1923, at the age of 19, Goff built this stucco house for Central High School art teacher Ada Robinson. She used it as a studio and a home. A few years later, Goff and Robinson would collaborate on designing the 14-story Boston Avenue Methodist Church. It's an architectural wonder. Today, architect Tom Thixton lives in the little Ada Robinson studio.
It's a real unusual house. Most people can't live in it because of all the walls have so many movements and insets and outsets and built-ins that you can't put any furniture anywhere. You have to have a real good imagination to figure out how to live in this house.
Tom not only lives here, but he uses it for his architectural office too, probably much the same way Ada Robinson had it set up in the 20s. The living room studio has a cool sunken fireplace surrounded by terrazzo tile, and a lot of built-ins. That was a favorite Goff design element.
As we leave the living room, we come into what is supposed to be a dining room, but it's more of a hallway. It's only 7 feet wide by 14 feet long, which is really too small for furniture. Most of the furniture we have is just strung around the walls.
Well, I guess Ada Robinson wasn't a very big eater. Her kitchen was tiny, almost an afterthought.
The plans don't have any kitchen on it. They had to red pencil it in and then figure out a way to put a door here and make it operational, but they didn't have a kitchen on the real plans. And so they put this one little room, 5 foot by 8, on as they were building the house. And for a kitchen, that's pretty small. That's hardly a good-sized closet. But they did put a counter in here which had a sink and a stove and a refrigerator, and that's all she needed. And she wasn't getting ready to do any big meals. And I'm not either.
Well, this house that Goff built for Robinson was one of the earliest in his career. He loved using odd shapes and bold designs.
Well, this is an upstairs bedroom, and it's all wide open, no doors. We have doors to the outside 3 balconies, and there's no closets. The only closets we have are little vanities and built-ins. We got a hers and a his on each side. Back in those days, early days, they just didn't do closets. Closets are today, not yesterday.